all that.
Right, welcome to Tab, Neil.
Cheers,
Today
mate.
we've got Neil on to tell his story. I can assure you it's an absolute belting story as well. So, Neil, thanks very much for coming on, mate, and
No, thanks
sharing
for
with
having
us
me
all.
on.
No, you're very welcome, mate. I've known you best part of 20 odd years now.
Yeah, long time. Too
Yeah,
long.
so obviously I've known you mainly through that time being in the army. So before we get into all the other stuff, where did you grow up, and what was school like and stuff like that for you?
So, yeah, I grew up in Bolton, is where I was born. I'd say I wasn't a poor family. We wasn't quite in a like council house, but we was pretty much in like a council estates type of thing. So obviously growing up, I had quite strict parents. My dad was quite strict. He come from a kind of military background. He wasn't military himself, but like my granddad was, and he pretty much had quite a strict upbringing with that. So he did pass kind of some of that strictness down onto me a little bit. I won't say as much as my granddad, but some people look at it like, oh God, that's a bit too strict, like especially these days. But to me, I think no, it was perfect. As much as I didn't understand it back then, as being a kid, you always want to do more and push the boundaries, and especially when you got other friends doing what they want and staying out late or doing whatever. It wasn't so much the case for me. But now, obviously, being a lot older, you very much understand it, and especially having kids of your own. But so I always appreciated like thinking back of it now. And I suppose in a sense it kind of drew me away from kind of the bad folk who, I used to hang around with, because that, it was kind of the norm where I grew up, getting in trouble, fighting, stealing, doing drugs, stuff like that. Where like I see a lot of old friends from back home didn't never really, don't get me wrong, one or two are, but the majority are still just going through dead end jobs, just in that monotonous cycle. Or they've just been in and out of prison, and just nothing great. Where luckily enough for me, with kind of the upbringing I had a little bit of noggin, and got away with that and joined the army. And it kind of set me off on the correct path in a way. School life. Go on, sorry.
Was the army always planned out for you, Neil? Was it always something that you thought about through school as well, or were you quite academic at school?
No, I won't say I was. I wasn't. I won't call myself thick. I won't say I'm like extremely intelligent, but I do have a little bit of intelligence about me. However, I wasn't academic at school. I was never there, if you know what I mean. I was there. Well, there was a lot of cases where I weren't actually physically there because I used to bunk off all the time. But I was never there when I was at school, if you know what I mean. I was never interested. I was more just bothered of just hanging around with friends, having fun. So when it comes to classes, I was never really interested in classes. I mean, don't get actually, there was, my teachers used to always say, like to my parents, like he's not, I was always in the low classes because I just wasn't interested. And the teachers used to always say he's intelligent and he should be in the higher classes, but just trying to grab his interest in subjects and stuff like that is it's like now on impossible. And however, there was a few cases where like subjects, same like history, science, I used to be interested in a lot of stuff. Funnily enough, we ended up doing that anyway with CBRN. And a few English class, subjects. And I would put like 100% 110% effort in it, and I'd shine and do really well. But in the majority of things, I would just, yeah, whatever, just throw my pass, not listening and doing whatever I wanted, being a nuisance in class. So yeah, so as you were saying, like the army wasn't actually my first thing I wanted to go down. I actually wanted to be a fireman, and my dad used to take me down to the local fire station, and they used to show me around and kind of teach me things and stuff like that. And that was from around like 14 years old. So actually, at an early age, like through my dad's kind of guidance, I was already thinking ahead for the future. And then as I used to go down, then realized, for one, I was going to have to go to college and stuff like that, which I was like, okay, because it was something I wanted to do, I was willing to kind of go down that route, and try and obviously then put a lot more effort, because it was something where I could see it was a goal, if you know what I mean. If I wanted to be a fireman, it was something I had to do. So I was like, okay, I'll knuckle down with that. But then I found out it was like, oh, you have to be 18. And then I think I went and did work experience. I actually went and did the army, where it was like 2 weeks. We went to, I can't remember the camp. It's where remember Krypton Factor?
Yes,
The
I
assault
can't
corps.
remember that. Yeah.
It was there where it was actually an old, like it was one of like I think it's near in Ramsbottom, not far outside of Bolton. And it's actually an army camp where they do a lot of like train. It's basically a training camp. So we went there for 2 weeks, and I was really good at it. My fitness was, I was extremely fit back then, because I used to do lots of sports. I've always done sports from literally a very young age, from like all martial arts. Like I did karate first, then aikido, jiu-jitsu, and then I did wrestling for years, and I was really good at wrestling. Won many medals and trophies from that. And then went into rock climbing, and I did that for years and did lots of competitions with that, British Championships, World Cup finals and stuff. So I was an extremely fit guy, and I was always training. So yeah, when I went there, I excelled, and it kind of showed me how actually I'm pretty good at this part of that's kind of my strong point, is kind of my physical fitness. And being in that situation with a lot of other people and seeing where everyone else was, I was kind of, not to blow my own trumpet, but I was kind of at the top, and I found it easy where the majority of people found it extremely hard. So then I had kind of a thought, well, do I want to go to college and be a fire and wait till I'm 18 to actually get started with life? Or do I want to make the jump and join the army? And obviously I made the decision of joining up from pretty much as soon as I left school. Yeah.
So was that 16, Neil? Yeah.
Yeah.
So was that down to Harrogate for a year?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to be 16 9 months. So I actually got a job working in a tailoring mill. I was just basically doing all like the packaging and making sure the deliveries were going to the correct places. So I did that for pretty much, yeah, it was nearly 9 months. So that kind of gave me a little bit of experience. But even before, I used to always work. I think a lot of guys did. I did paper rounds, milk rounds, and stuff. I used to love going working at my dad's work, until that had to stop, because my dad was like, "Luke, it's kind of illegal to." Because I always would go like at the weekends. I would love going. It was like early in the morning, go to my dad's bakery, and I used to go on the delivery runs and help deliver and stuff like that. And I loved it. And I used to get a little wage packet and whatnot. but unfortunately it was illegal, and my dad was like, "Yeah, we kind of have to stop." But yeah, it was a shame because I absolutely loved it. So I had a good work ethic. Um, yeah, so
So,
yeah.
but when you decided army, did you always know you were going RTR, or was it sort of
No,
steered down that route at training?
no. So because I had no knowledge. I mean, I used to listen to like my granddad and my great granddad. Like my great granddad at the time used to love going listening to his World War II stories of stuff. He had some proper funny ones. And my granddad never ever really talked about it all at all. It was mainly off my great granddad where I would always like hear stories and stuff like that. Um, kind of lost my train of thought now. Uh,
So
so
you
I
got
that
RTR
was it.
then.
So I had no idea of really what any of the regiments was. I didn't have no idea of anything, literally zero knowledge of anything. And so just went to the careers office, went through all, selection and all that, and the bar test. And obviously went through the bar test. I did all right. But when obviously went through selection, my physical fitness kind of outshone like my intelligence by far. I actually held. I remember getting the record actually for the most pull-ups when I went to. I think I did like 45 pull-ups in that time, and I remember we were all on parade just before we went for the interview, and they were like, I remember it was I can't it was a full screw or a sergeant coming in, and he kind of shouted, and I didn't answer because I thought, oh shit, I'm in trouble because he was like, who was the one who did 45 pull-ups? And I was like, oh shit, I'm not saying jack shit type of thing, keeping my gob shut. But yeah, and he said, because that was amazing, no one's ever done that many before, but that was just due because I've been climbing for years and years and years, and I was just, yeah, I definitely can't do that now, I tell you. But so yeah, my physical fitness outshone that. So obviously, after when you go back, you get told what you can go to um and all that, which and they just for me it was powers. It was just like, yeah, you're going powers, son, and I was like, okay, I had no idea who they were or what they were or whatnot. So I went through a lot of like the basic as a para, and then I remember like later in the year, um, we had like a big, huge open day, and a few of the guys in our room was funnily enough one of the guys is RTR who went through training with. Actually, two guys. One joined. It was Scouts who joined one with me, and the other was two RTR. And the another guy and two other guys in the room were RDG, and one was QDGs. So it was funny. We were kind of like a tanky, armored core room. So obviously, my mind then started thinking, well, I'm like the only. There was a lot of paras in the platoon at the time, but in that room, I was kind of the odd one out a little bit. But we had a big open day. And remember, we were going around and they had a chalet there and whatnot. And I remember chatting to a sergeant, and there was the group of us, and I was like, you know what, I would love to get on the tanks. And the sergeant was like, yeah, you can transfer. And I was like, how do you go about that? And he kind of said, like, you can change before you get, cap badged and get finished, you can actually change. So I went back and spoke to the platoon officer, and he was just like, yeah, that's fine. If that's kind of where you want to go, you got plenty of time to do that. And I was like, yeah. And then I remember at that time, because they knew I wanted to change, the platoon sergeant, who was actually a Marine, he was then trying to convince me to become commandos. And I was like, no, I want to go on tanks. So that's how I ended up actually going RTR and kind of stuck that way then.
So, what year did you get to RTR, Neil? Was it pre-Telic 1?
Oh yeah, yeah,
I'm rubbish
well
with
before
years,
then.
mate, honestly.
Yeah, So I got to the regiment. I think it was I think it was around like January, February, March. It was like March. No, I think it was a little bit longer than that. I think it was like April 2001. Yeah. Yeah, it was around about that time. I actually flew through. I got through phase two pretty rapid because my name was it began. My last name began with a B. I were like first on all the courses, and it helped as well. I passed my driving license within 3 days, so I kind of fast tracked through that, and then I then jumped literally straight because that was the first thing I did. I remember getting there, and the first thing I did was my driving license, and I got that within 3 days. And so I literally could then jump, skip the step, and jump straight onto um, kind of the group who'd come before us, before like our intake. I went into the previous intake for then getting your H license and then going straight on basically your D&M course. So I then was already kind of ahead. So yeah, I didn't actually spend that long at Bovia because I kind of flew through and I never had to wait or for next course. I basically just jumped as soon as I finished one. I had like a day or two, then I was straight onto like then signals. And before I knew it, I was done and dusted, and I think I had a week off, and then went straight to the regiment basically. It was funny. It was at Warminster, tipped up in the whole regiment. It was away. Well, you were there then, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
You was in Warminster Squadron at that time, and yeah, tipped up. The whole squadron was on events training. So tipped up. I think it was just me and Dinger Bell and Jed Woolley. Sorry, I'm mentioning names, but yeah,
That's all right. That's cool.
oh, and Terry Jennings as well. So it were them three. So they were the first people I were introduced to. They were just getting dragged to the bar every night, which was fun.
Sweep the tank back.
Oh yeah, basically, and getting grilled off Dingo.
Yeah, nothing changed, did
yeah,
it?
yeah. But to be honest, that was it's funny when you think back to them days where you're like brand new and you're like like quite big personalities back then, and were like now like your best buddy like I mean for years now ever so, but you're like best buds, and it's like a complete different dynamic. Um, like now where you wouldn't think they were ever like that at the very start, but it's just it's a way. Well, it's way how it should be really, because then it's in a sense it's a way you build respect in that way.
Yeah. So in terms of that, so you moved from Warminster to. Did you go into like one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I remember when because I actually remember we had the Northern Ireland tour before that.
Yes.
I wanted to go on that, and I begged, but they already had a plan for me because they wanted to because I ended up being quite a good gunner because that's why they stuck me in SHQ. And being put me on as the Aussies gunner at the time. They already was like, no, we want you to go on these courses because we want you to do this. Even though that I was like begging, I was like, oh, I really want to do that. But yeah, so yeah, I went on Telic one as well.
To like one of, so I mean, I went with one of the other teams, but a bit gutted I didn't go with the regiment because I think there was a bit of people had fun up in Alcurna and places like that.
Oh yeah, that was fun up there. Yeah, because
Yeah, I
you
can
went off
imagine.
with you on with the special forces?
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I didn't end up with them. There was a few teams with them, but I wasn't.
Yeah, because I think like
Um,
Billy went with them and a few
yeah,
others.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean, Telic was fun, wasn't it? And it's like,
yeah.
what do
I
you
mean,
do after it? You know, it's
yeah, especially being like, yeah, a young lad and like going to somewhere like that. So it's weird. Like it's kind of like a blur now. It's weird because you like tell people and they go like, wow, Jesus. It's like they can't wrap their head around it. And I'm like, I don't know. It was just kind of a blur. I was just doing basically. There was no
yeah. I
thinking
think
about it in a sense of like what the scope of it all was. It was just doing it. I was not
yeah,
feeling or thinking of anything. It was just doing. And well, I mean, like as you know, like the warfields were pretty bloody boring. I just because I went off. I was with D Squadron with Gary Linus, and we crossed the border a couple of like a day before the actual kind of launch day. So because we went off with the US Marines, so we were like halfway up the bloody country before everyone even crossed the border. Um, and I just remember we were just tagging along behind the US Marines basically. I remember sleeping half of it. I remember just
yeah,
waking up now and again where they were like raiding trenches and just dragging out, POWs and stuff and just sending them off, and then we'll crack on. And then, yeah,
I think
I think,
that's the thing when you're a bit younger as well. You don't, I don't know, you don't fully appreciate the danger you're potentially in at that point, do you? And you're just like, ah, yeah, whatever, it's fine.
not only that,
Yeah,
I was a bit of a nutter anyway. Before even, I were always very much a big risk taker. Probably
yeah.
half the reason why I'm like I am now.
We'll come to that soon,
Yeah.
mate.
Yeah.
I so Telic, man. I mean, I spoke about it the other time I was on with Daz, and it was a bit of a mad time because Telic One know a lot happened, and I remember like single vehicle convoys and stuff like that happening, and then
Yeah.
obviously Telic 2, 3, right through became a bit of a really hostile environment.
Yeah.
But I didn't go back for about maybe 6, 7 years after Telic 1. I went back on Telic 13.
Mm.
Um, you done a few tours, didn't you? You done a few of
Yeah.
the fire
So
station ones, wasn't it?
yeah, they were buckshy. They were good. They were really good because we got to do some pretty cool stuff. So yeah, like you're saying, so like you missed out on like the peacekeeping role at Alkerna. Yeah, that was fun. Because obviously there was no government, there was no police, there was no nothing. So and obviously it was just a free for all. They were just taking government vehicles and all sorts of stuff. So it was kind of lawless in a sense. Plus, excuse me, in Alkerna there was an issue with all the marsh Arabs, and obviously you know the story behind them. Like Saddam hated them, and he would basically attack them all the time, and use chemical weapons on them and stuff like that. So they had a bit of a beef, and they used to come into Alkerna because they kind of lived on the boundaries ish, and they would come in to Alkerna and take people's homes in a sense, just go in and just take people's homes and take things. And so it was trying to establish control in there. And we used to do a lot of patrols, and like we would like try to get back a lot of like the government vehicles and stuff like that. And also within all that as well, there was family infighting because you had Shia and Sunnis who just didn't like each other on top of all that. Which yeah, so there was a lot of family fighting, and obviously their family fighting is not just verbal abuse, it's throwing grenades at each other and chopping each other's heads off with machetes and shooting each other. And so there was all that going on, and on top of that as well, we was at to kind of protect um, certain buildings like the hospital because they would raid that for medicals and stuff like that. And obviously you can't have that when it needed to be fully up and running and they needed everything to get so people can come in. So we were guarding that, plus guarding like it was a library, but it was kind of a place where we kind of tried to establish some sort of government council to control and help when we brought in the elders to kind of put in charge. Also, the bank needed protecting, so we would do a rotation of days where you would go and protect these places, and other days would like just basically patrolling, going around chasing cars, which was so much fun. Basically on big car chases, um, and then just being police. Of when family issues going to and trying to negotiate between families or basically getting rough with them. You had to, like obviously people don't realize like normal civilians, it's like, oh, they would see as that being very aggressive and very over the top, but they don't understand like how these people actually live and understand that, if you try to be soft with them, you're just going to get nowhere. So sometimes you have to, it's always, you need to talk, but a lot of the times, like that just doesn't work. You have to like show force with them, and unfortunately, that had to happen a lot. And it was like that, But they understood a lot of time. Like we would do like really big raids, like early morning raids on like big kind of like settlements around, and we'd basically like because you know what I'm talking about, like big compounds, and within that compound there's loads of like buildings and stuff like that. So we'd like block all the entrances and stuff like that, and they would just go and storm like for at dawn, first thing in the morning, waking them up and going, banging out the door, right? You've got these government vehicles, we need them back. And then we also tried to control the guns as well, which I don't fully understand. It was more of a higher up, but I understood enough, like understanding that these people needed the guns in a sense to protect themselves, but also it wasn't easy where we could just let a free for all. So I remember the system getting set up where they kind of temporary registered guns. So they just came, told us what they had, and it was just like, cool, we know what you have. If we find anything else and don't lie to us, we're happy for you have them, but just let us know, and it's perfectly fine. So there was a lot of that going on because, to be honest, there was all sorts of weapons flying about. I remember we did a raid on a hotel because there was suspected Bath Party members hiding, and I remember it was like literally right on the Garden of Eden, where the Euphrates and basically where the four rivers meet. And I remember there was a couple of kids out the back, and they were diving into the river, and I was guarding at the back, and this kid's like, Mister, shouting, telling me, he was like, Luke, and I was like, what's up? What you on about? And he went and dived down, and he pulled out a bloody big stinger missile out of the bloody river, and he just like, all right, yeah, okay. So there was all sorts flying about, but yeah, it was just so much fun. It was just that part of the tour was, it was good fun.
The thing is, a lot of people don't understand it. It's like you go to war, but a lot of you're heavily engaging with locals and talking to them, and sometimes having a laugh with them and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a hard mental kind of you kind of. I found it more, I suppose, being a little bit older and whatnot, was that the Afghan tour was where I kind of seen it a lot more. But even at a younger age, not being, because obviously being a lower rank as well, you're not fully engaged in that kind of sense. You see it and you kind of understand, but it wasn't until further, along in my career, like on other tours, where you're more involved and you see it, and it's kind of, it was the main kind of, I can't think of the word, but like you got kind of have to have like two sides of compassion and kind of then having like a hands off, like keeping at arm's length in a sense. And it was more so in Afghanistan, getting involved in the local. Well, you were there. We, many a times we were in the same troop, but kind of understanding like, yeah, you can, with the majority of people where you see and are around friendly and will help you in some sort, but then in certain parts in where we went, it was completely opposite. It's like some people wanted to help but were too afraid, and you have to kind of have that dissociation of like, okay, you can't fully trust them, because if they're that afraid, they could easily persuaded to attack you, or getting, take advantage in any way they can. So yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
it's that sort of hearts and minds bit, but also keeping your wits about you, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because you just never know what's going to happen, and it's
yeah, yeah.
some of
Oh
the
yeah.
engagements we were having were sort of through midday and stuff like that, weren't they, straight away. And you knew it was coming. You always knew it was coming.
Mm,
I remember we spent a few days, I think we were up in Sangin, and
yeah.
every day at 12 o'clock we could see it. We could see it coming, mate. 12 o'clock every day, they'd open up on us. Um, but there's nothing you can do about it apart from put your head down, identify and engage back, I suppose.
I loved
So,
it.
yeah,
I was just
so
like, really?
let's
I'm,
move
I'm a,
up to sort of 2008, 2009 when the Afghan tour for the regiment was actually announced. Um, I was on Telic at the time, Telic 13 I was on, and I sort of volunteered myself for it straight away. It got me back, I think, about 3 weeks early for Iraq. So, I mean, bonus, earlier than that, I suppose.
mm,
But it was straight back into training. What about yourself? Obviously, it was something you were keen to do.
yeah. Well, it was kind of a funny one with me, but so I didn't do that. That was the only kind of Iraq tour I didn't do what the regiment did. Because I did two CBRM ones, which were kind of butchery fun ones, and then we did, was it Telex 7? Was it 7?
9.
I've not got it. I thought that I've got a picture somewhere. Yeah, oh,
Was it
9. Yeah, that was
Telic
it. It
9?
was
Sorry,
9.
but
Yeah.
I'll skip past that then. I'll go back to that, mate. Telic 9 then. Sorry, I didn't know you were on that one. Neil.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
I
know Telic 9 was
I
quite a
get on
tasty, wasn't it?
every tour I could. I loved it. I think that's where I felt most at home. I was never a tank part soldier. I was never I won't say I was rubbish at it. I did it, but it wasn't where I felt more comfortable and more at home was doing tours. That's what I always wanted to do. So I would always try and get on as many tours as I possibly could, which I did generally. The only one I didn't do was the 13, because obviously I had to keep up with career course. So yeah. Yeah, so yeah, if you want to go back to
Yeah,
telling.
so to Telic 9, mate, I missed that one. I think I'd just been posted away at the time. Is it? I get posted down to Warminster. Tried to get back and get told to wind my neck. And as you know, career courses, mate, and
Yeah,
it's one of them. Everybody wanted to do it. But so what was that tour like, Neil?
it was good actually. It was the second half, I think, was good. The Baghdad, that was pretty good. I enjoyed that a lot. The first half doing the prison, it was good. I enjoyed it, but there was a bit of monotonous to it. It was just, especially doing, like the normal stag duties around the perimeter in the towers. Because at that time as well, it was the kind of wet season and it was bloody cold and it was wet. And it was just spending basically 24 hours in them bloody towers was pretty crap. The prison was all right. I enjoyed doing that because we made it fun. I was always in the rat run because they wouldn't let me inside. They thought it was too aggressive. Me and Jerry, they wouldn't let us in. So we always got stuck in the rat run and Lee Spit. We had to, they wouldn't let us go inside. They thought we was too aggressive. Um, but it is what it is. I
That
didn't think it
northern
was that bad.
accent sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
You can come across as aggressive, not. And let's
I,
be honest, Neil, that wee man's syndrome's an actual thing for us, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It certainly is. I
So
didn't think I was that bad, but there was occasions where I would lose my rag.
yeah, shouting at people, mate, it's just one of the
But it
things,
was
isn't it?
always well deserved. Well, people knew it was well deserved if I actually lost my temper. They didn't have
Yeah.
to push me to get me.
So the second half of that tour, that was up in Baghdad, right? I mean, I've heard about some of it, and I've heard it was enjoyable, but extremely kinetic at the time as
Oh
well.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah. I think that was. I mean, kind of seen. I think my first incident was in on Telic One when we was in camp. There was stuff went on there, but nothing kind of really fully direct, if you know what I mean. We had a few little things through other like the CBRN tours, what I did. But that one was like full on first time, like doing the runs across Route Irish. Yeah, it was yeah, it was the kind of full on, and it wasn't just the enemy. It was the Americans sometimes were just shooting at us. It was just like when, especially like we were on convoys, and they were bloody rubbish at keeping in contact with like the front half and the back half. So they'll come on a slit road, and we'll slot it right in between. There was one incident actually where it was just the worst of the worst could happen, where we caught up. They were coming off a slit road and we were on the road, and their front kind of part of the convoy came on in front of us. So we obviously our SOPs is right, just back off, give them plenty of space. So we kind of slowly backed off, and yeah, lo and behold, we got contacted. So we engage. Bear in mind, we were generally using Tracer at that time as well. So it was pretty obvious where we were engaging. And I remember the back. So, and obviously our SLP as well, when you get in the kill zone, is you just bomb bust and get the hell out of there. The Americans don't bloody do that. So they were like, so then we were like then catching up the front group, and the rear guy on the 50 cal of their convoy turned it on the front of our convoy. Luckily, I didn't light up our convoy, but like giving like warning shots in front of the bloody convoy, shooting his 50 at us. Luckily, there was one. Well, then obviously the rear convoy, part of the American convoy, then came up behind us. So we were like rammed in the move. We couldn't get out where it's like get the hell out of the kill zone. So all it was is I can't remember how many vehicles there were. There was quite a few of us, and it was just full on. Everyone were just lighting up, and it was just like forget the Americans. Luckily enough, in the rear part of the American convoy, they had a little bit of noggin, actually realised where we were shooting and got involved, which was nice. But yeah, it was just stuff like that was crazy. And yeah, and it happened quite regularly where we just contacts on that route. And it was actually one of the first time where I actually had kind of my closest near-death experience was going down. We'd already gone one way, and we did get contacted on the way to the airport, and then on the way back to camp, back to the green zone. It was dark and it was quiet, and we was all on night vision, and we were coming down and it was pretty quiet, and then there was like a slight turnish, and just next minute there was just this whiz, and it because we were on the snatches and we was like back to back, so I was looking out one way and the partner were looking out the other way, so we were back to back, and it just went right in between us. And I remember my mate, he turned round at that time to be like, what was that? And I just expecting another round to come in, and we just went whoof, and bloody battered him with my helmet. And then by that time, I kind of come back down, and I just remember looking off. No one really had a clue what was going on, and it was a sniper, and he wasn't even that far off the edge of the road. I'd say probably, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 meters roughly. Hard to tell on night vision, but he would just he just had jeans on and a kind of a top, and I just don't know if I got him, but I just put some rounds down on him, and I remember Jerry was on the vehicle, because we were like the back vehicles, and Jerry was the last vehicle, and he's seen him as well. And he was trying, because he had the mini-me as well, so he tried to get on him, but we had like scrim on the back, and he got his bipod stuck on the scrim, so he couldn't get on him, and he was so pissed off when we got in, because he was like, I seen him, I'm perfect, to be able to let on him. And I don't know if I got him, but apparently, because obviously we looked into it after, because obviously once all that went on, because obviously I were letting off rounds, and Jerry was like trying to let off rounds, and so obviously people like the rest of the convoy in front are like, what's going on, but obviously I remember I have to tell everyone shut up, because they wouldn't let me speak, because everyone's like, I don't know, we're like, shut up. Then I obviously explain, and then when we got back, we looked into it, and apparently that sniper had been an absolutely a menace on that route for quite a while. Killed a few Americans, and however, intel after that was he actually went quite quiet, so maybe just injured him or something like that. But yeah, that was kind of the first one, was just like, whew. I remember getting back, kind of still adrenaline pumping, but like afterwards thinking, holy crap, that was lucky, because that went like right in between me and the guy who I was with. Yeah, close one. But yeah, it's fun
It's,
times. It.
it's a bizarre mindset that we've got in it, mate. That when people are firing that, as we get excited and we think it's.
Yeah.
I suppose we normalise it, and that's what the training's all about, I suppose.
It is. It's weird that it's like, I mean, it doesn't work for everyone. It works with the majority of guys, but like you've seen it just as much as I have. Like some guys do kind of. For me, it's weird. It's just like an automatic switch. It's just, don't even think about the danger of it at all. It's just you just instantly react, and it I don't know. It's weird. Like you don't sense the danger of it. Of like, oh god, this could kill me. Or don't even cross your mind at all. You just kind of be like, where's that coming? You kind of instinctively like, right, I need to kind of get on the guy, start to let everyone know where that position is, and just do it. It's it just automatically, instinctively happens.
I'm sure you've heard this many times of your journey since Afghan, that we'll talk about in a minute, but it's fight or flight, isn't it?
Yeah,
Fight or flight. There's a lot of people who I've spoke to in recent years, and it's like the amount of stuff that you go through in that moment, like you say, you think straight away, contact, shit, got to look what it's coming for, got to let everybody else know, identify the target, engage, or get out of there. But there's an automatic mode in us all, and it's just you either fight or flight, mate. And it's you probably heard that a million
yeah,
times
yeah. I think a
throughout
lot,
recent years.
most people have, yeah. But yeah,
Um,
yeah, we've got a fun story coming up about all that in a minute.
yeah,
I think you probably remember which one it is.
but it's like fight or flight as well, Neil. It's one of them. It can only last for so long as well. Sometimes if you're always
Yeah,
fighting and never getting the fuck out of there, then there'll be at some point it'll catch up with you and kick you right in the arse, mate.
yeah.
But
Oh yeah. But
anyway, that leads us into let's go on to Henrik, mate.
yeah,
I think I joined mid pre-deployment because I'd just come back after post-operational leave. I think you were fully into swinging the Vikings at that time.
Hmm.
What a good vehicle.
Yeah.
So, in terms of build up and stuff like that, Neil, what was it like for yourself?
So, um, so I came into the build up a little bit later because I was put on. I was on my gunnery instructors. Um, so I came into kind of the build up for that year a little bit later than like most. I think you hadn't done actually. You had done quite a bit. Like you'd gone through lots of. I don't know. You'd gone through quite a few things, but luckily enough, a lot of it, even though you need refreshing on it, luckily enough, I've done it many times previously, and all. It wasn't too much of a catch up for me, so I caught up pretty quick, which was it was all right. Um, but yeah, so kind of like the first kind of part where I came in for the build up was when we all went on to then to Bovey to learn about the Viking, and we did all that sort of stuff. Um, yeah, good. Wasn't really hard, really, to be honest. Was good. And then yeah, we just obviously did your normal kind of packages after that, didn't we? And then we was kind of ready to go. And then just before we got deployed, I ended up hurting myself, didn't I? Me and Lammy going downhill mountain biking. I ended up fracturing my collarbone and dislocating my shoulder. So I was told that was like, yeah, you need 8 months to recover, and it looks like you won't be going on that tour. And obviously, I was not having that. I was like, no, I'm going. Um, and obviously, you like the OC I'm like working hard trying not to throw names out, but the OC at the time, how keen he was. So I went and see him. I was like, Luke, I really want to get out. And obviously he was just like, hell yeah, come on, train hard. And funny off, is the MD at the time was his wife.
Yeah,
And obviously she was going like, no, you need 8 months to recover, blah blah blah. And I'm like, look, I'm fine. So after like a couple of weeks, I was like, sod this, and I was like trying to, you know, do training, not pushing it too much, but training, going back, running and doing everything. And obviously, the CO at the time was super keen, and he caught word that I wanted to go. So he see me getting on the PT and training sessions when I shouldn't have been. So he loved it, and he was like, yes, yes, yes. And obviously, the OC was saying to his wife, look, if he can do this, this, and that, like all he'll have to do his CFT again, the PFA, and other things. Can't quite remember the names anymore. Can he go? And it was kind of a compromise. Like, look, okay, if he comes in off his Christmas leave and does it, then I've not got no choice. Yeah, he can go. So I did. I came off my Christmas leave, smashed it all out, and then a week later, I think it was just after New Year. Yeah, yeah, just after New Year, um, I then basically flew out and kind of joined everyone else, um, which was all right because you hadn't done anything. It was more of like the turnaround and just doing, the kind of conjoined kind of little missions and whatnot. What you were doing with the previous to kind of settle in, weren't you? So I hadn't missed too much, thank God.
yeah,
But I remember tipping up, and it was luckily enough you had all pretty much come back in, and we were straight out doing. Yeah, it was the. Oh, I can't remember what it was, going down to Nadi Ali, um, and I remember just being straight away being chucked right into the lead wagon. I remember the boss was just like, "Do you want to be lead?" I think, and who was doing it originally? I think he went on R&R, or something like I don't know. I can't quite remember. But I remember just going straight into lead, and I was like, yeah, why not? Sod it. I'll do it. Chuck me in deep end. But I loved it. I'd loved doing the lead vehicle.
Do you know what, mate? I loved it as well for the simple reason. It's not that we're going into danger and shit like that. It's the fact that I wasn't getting sand in my face the whole time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was fucking it was a bit of a nightmare some days, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was a bit of, it, I I enjoyed our trip, mate. Our trip, we had a good trip, I
We
thought.
did. We did.
Um, and it sort of gelled pretty well, you know what I mean? There was a good mixture of people in it.
Yeah, we did have a good
Um,
group.
and it was, this sounds really weird, but some of the times on tours, you have fun. And I think a lot of people have fun. Um, and you can't
Feel
really explain that to people, but I think it's just a situation, isn't it? You're in a shit situation, you might as well make the most of it, mate. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. It's
But
like what it's like because it's not like you go out there, even when you're in camp, it's not a comfortable situation to be in. You know what I mean? I mean, it's the most comfortable you are being in camp, even though I preferred it. Like I loved it because we would go out for like a couple of weeks and we'd be out on the ground, just living out on the ground. That's why I thought that tour was probably one of the best tours because it was actually proper soldiering, where we
yeah,
were actually lived out on the ground. We were fending them for ourselves. You're pretty much just constantly out in the thick of it around, enemy all around you constantly. Um, and I think I love that one more because it wasn't of just a case of just going out, coming back and mainly living in camp. It was like literally out there. And yeah, like you were saying, you have to you have to have that kind of fun, uh, messing about a little bit. It's always time and place, but you have to have that kind of fun. There was remember when it absolutely peed it down and all the trenches had filled up and we were like shoving each other. And I think it was you who shoved me in. I think I've got that video somewhere.
yeah.
Um,
I still get the video. I stick it on Facebook every once in a while where I ran up and done the shit Olympic dive in the water.
yeah.
But that's one of the things, and it people say, "Well, why the fuck are you doing that when you're out there?" And you're like, "Ah, because you've got to have a laugh."
Yeah.
You know what I
Playing
mean?
tricks on the boss when we was out, like nicking
Yeah,
his helmet or sticking stones under the rim so it'd like stick.
that that was educational stuff, Neil.
Yeah.
Anyway, admit that was educational. Right, mate, we'll go on a wee bit to the day of the accident. Do you remember much about that day?
No, no.
Nah.
It's weird how I mean it's weird how I've like over time like formulated a picture of it all and have like a good idea. Um, but as but that's mainly just from like obviously remembering like experiences out there and doing stuff and what it's like, and then obviously what the people have like told me what was going on that day. So I kind of formulated a good picture in a sense. But no, it's weird how it literally kind of um, blanked a lot of because we did just a kind of a previous mission. We come in and did a quick turnaround and went back out again, didn't we? As far as I know. So even a lot of that, the previous stuff had kind of like a big blur. It's weird. Stuff does come back sometimes of like if someone mentions something, it kind of just comes back a bit. But I did actually lose a lot of my memory, like of even far to the past. So like Jerry would actually, from like childhood stuff and stuff like that, Jerry would actually talk about these things, and it would take me a little bit to kind of just like kind of jog, but eventually a lot of stuff kind of started coming back and came back, and I remember more stuff. It only occasionally. It's sometimes it's weird. I do think it's like, wait, do I remember everything, or am I actually still missing things? Because
Yeah.
there is now and again where we'll go on about something and I'll be like, oh, I don't remember that. But then a little bit later on, it'll kind of come back again.
So
It's a bit weird, but yeah.
I don't know if we've spoken about it in the past, but what I sort of remember that day is we were travelling up north and vehicles just kept breaking down. I think we had maybe 2 or 3 vehicles breaking down, mine being one of them. So at the time of the explosion, I was actually driving. I don't know if you knew that. I was driving a vehicle for
Oh,
somebody.
don't remember that at all.
So what had happened, Neil, is my driver at the time, he had drunk maybe 3, 4 litres of fucking Coca Cola. So he piled in a bit. Um, so
I'm
I
trying to
switched.
remember who
I
your
jumped
driver
in the
was now.
driver's seat. What's that, mate?
I'm trying to remember who your driver was now. I can't remember.
I'll tell you in a bit. I'll tell you in a
Yeah.
bit. They moved about a bit, but I'll tell you who it was. Um, and I was driving, mate, because John was with us that day.
Oh, was
And
he? I don't remember that.
yeah, so he was going out to meet his trip. So we were driving through, mate, and like I say, I was driving, and as I say, you're just covered with sand, aren't you? Obviously, for any driver's cab, I was struggling to see. And then I heard it and seen it. I was like, fuck.
Mm.
And I was just straight away. I remember coming straight on the net. I was like, contact ID, wait out. And I jumped straight out at that point. But by that time, there was already a couple of people out, and you know who they were as well.
Mm-hmm.
The situation unfolded as it did, you know what I mean? I think we were lucky that day. There was a helicopter flying back to Bastion, if I'm right.
I heard that. Yeah, it was
And
pretty quick.
they turned around and came back. But the sort of I'll get your version in a minute, mate, which is what you remember it. But I'm just telling you what I remember because I don't think we've ever sat down and spoke about it.
No, we've not. No.
Um, After it, there was a lot of having to get round the troop, talk to them. There was people in a bad way, good pals of yours
Mm-hmm.
as well. We were all mates, but you had some good pals on that trip as
Yeah.
well. And there was a lot of going round, getting the SIGs out, everybody having a quick fag and that, you know what I mean, and chatting about what happened. And yeah, for a couple of hours and a couple of days after it, it was the trip was sort of fucking felt it a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. Oh, I can
Um,
imagine.
but hey, that's nothing compared to what you're going to go on to now. You know what I mean?
Mm.
We done what you would have done in that situation, Neil. You know,
Yeah.
you'd have got round about the troops. You'd have made
Mm.
sure everybody was all right as well, and you'd have made sure that the trip was in a good state to do the mission and get back. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because if it all falls apart, then more people are probably going to get hurt. So
Exactly, mate.
it's you have to just yeah. I mean, you've just got to put it behind. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
healthy, but at that situation, you have to, or else
yeah,
other
absolutely.
people are going to get hurt.
It's you sort it out when you get back, don't you? And that's it. So, but obviously you don't remember the explosion. You don't remember getting carried back. What's the earliest memory waking up for that, Neil?
Just in Birmingham, I think it was like 3, 4 days later. So I
Bloody
was
hell.
in an induced coma, um, and yeah, I just kind of vaguely remember because I was extremely drugged up of just kind of coming around in Birmingham. I don't. It's weird. It's something like there were no feelings or anything. I just remember my dad there, and he was just like I can't remember either, but I just remember just saying, "Oh, shit happens." I was just like, shit happens. It is what it is, kind of thing. Yeah, my dad was just like, "Oh, fucking hell," I weren't expecting them maybe our first words, but so it was kind of a bit of a haze, all that, because I was in and out of surgery a lot, so a lot of it is very like a blur. And then basically, I was in hospital for I think 8 or 9 weeks or something like that. And yeah, it was just crap sitting around doing all that. Yeah, there's not really much to say about that, really, about hospital. It's just yeah, just mainly just sitting in bed, just with family around, and it was nice. like you guys brought me that back, and a lovely bill for the wagon and the pictures. I was like, it was so, you know what, that actually really made that just like, yeah, that kind of really made my time at that point was just like, yeah, you know, it was good, it was nice, because I think, yeah, there was a couple of guys came, I think when they were on their R&R or something, came and seen. And obviously I had Jerry there quite a bit, which was nice. And obviously, like my grandparents, my mum and dad, and that. No, it was good. Um, yeah, and then after once I left, kind of went back home, and it was then kind of getting ready to go to Headley Court. And yeah, it was all the process of just basic rehabilitation, trying to get, you know, kind of get some back to some normality. It was tough. It wasn't, honestly, it wasn't tough back then. Early days, it wasn't tough. All I was just so determined. I just wanted to get back to normality. I just was. I didn't care about the injury. Obviously, initially, because they tried to save the leg. Obviously, like this, the surgeon did explain. It was like, Luke, it was an extremely long shot because literally all the tib and fib were completely demolished into millions of pieces. Like the surgeon said, it was one of his longest surgeries he's ever done in his life. And I think it was like 24 hours in the operating room because they literally had to get all the bone out the leg. I had like no calf left because they'd like cut all that away. And they basically rebuilt like from the bottom half of the knee joint was just metalwork. So it was like a big, like kind of metal piece going down, acting as the tib, and another metal piece acting as the fibula, or whichever way around, and then connecting to the ankle. But the leg was dead. I couldn't feel nothing, and I was getting aggravation at the knee joint because it was just painful, and I would kind of just dragging it around. But I managed. I was like, you know, kind of cracked on, and then as time kind of progressed a few months later, I was then kind of thinking, okay, maybe the decision is, after speaking to other people who kind of went through a similar thing, and like speaking to surgeons and other doctors who were saying, look, you know, it was a long shot, you know, it probably is the right way to go, is, you know, amputation, and elect amputation. And I was just like, yeah, you know, you're right. So I just went, okay, let's do it, and just went ahead with it. Wasn't really a hard choice. I think the only time I had a kind of a stumble or a doubt was literally the night before going out to the hospital. I had a bit of a cry, and we're just like, holy crap, kind of a realization of what was going to happen, of and like the decision I was making. But that was it, really. It wasn't too much of a hard choice, because the pain I was going through, and it was dead. It was dead.
Yeah.
And it was going to cause more complications in the future. So it was just like, right, I know I can do a hell of a lot more on, and what, seeing other guys going through it and how they were doing very much better on an amputation. So it was just like, yeah, I'll do it. So yeah.
See when the lads come back, did you feel that they sort of treated you a bit differently? Couldn't they speak to you and stuff like that? Found it really difficult?
Yeah, well,
I
I'll be
know
honest.
the
I mean,
times
I
when I
don't.
seen you was probably we were probably having a beer.
Well, that's, yeah. I mean, I don't know. There was, because, well, you know, because I wanted to stay in, as you know, and I
Yeah,
did. I stayed in
I
for another
remember you
couple
fighting
of,
for it,
yeah,
mate. I remember you fighting for it.
because I was just so determined. I was like, no, this ain't changing me. I can do it. It was a good thing and it was a bad thing. I do realize now what I did back then wasn't a good thing, but like, it wasn't all. It's difficult because I know it wasn't great because I wrecked myself. I did more damage than I should have, and that does still affect me to this day. The damage what I did to myself, tried to just push in and trying to be normal. But I don't regret it. Um, so yeah, I wanted to stay in, and that's why I went back to Afghan as the way I. It wasn't. Well, I wanted to go on the Mastiffs and back on out on the ground, but obviously they really. I begged and was like, no, I want to do it. I want to do it. Come on, I can do this. But understandably, I knew I was just pushing my luck in a sense because I could put other people in danger, and I knew that. But it was just like I really wanted to do it.
It's a
So
goal, mate, and it gives you something to aim at.
yeah, but I like I was saying before, and even to this day, and that's why I like doing like when I went out to Ukraine, I didn't just go and just do. I was kind of generally on the front line with the people, like because I feel more at home. Um, it sounds crazy, and I explain this to people. It's just like I don't know. It's even to the people who I was out there with, um, because there was a lot of rockets and that coming down, and they were like, "Why does that not affect you?" And I'm just like, I just because if it's my time, it's my time. It's like you cannot, if you're in this situation, you cannot think about any of that. If it happens, it happens. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just, life is just a roll of the dice. There could be any point. You could be at home, you could be in an accident. It's just a roll of the dice. So when you're in situations like, yeah, you're putting the risk is a lot higher. The chances are more likely. However, if it happens, it happens. There's nothing you can do about it. So you that sort of thinking, and it was funny. The team I was out there with, a portion of the team who was on the front lines, and that were they kind of started turning this and they took that saying as well. They were coming round to that kind of way of thinking. And I mean, there was the last she constantly was saying, it was like, yeah, if it happens, it happens. So then everyone were a lot more relaxed. And when things were happening, they were going off, and even close by and stuff like that, no one was panicking really. It was just kind of like, yeah, just carry on watching the film. Just it's, and they appreciated that. They were like, you know what, because it makes it a lot more easier to live in that. Because if you're constantly living high tension, you're not going to last long. You're going to burn out. You're going to just be a mess mentally wise. So it was everyone relaxed, and it was much better. And it was like explaining as well, because like the people who live there, like the Ukrainian people who live it like day to day, they were all like similar to me. So it just needed me to kind of explain it in a sense. And then once they kind of seen that and noticed it, they were like, actually, you know what? It kind of just kind of went off on a tangent anyway, to digress.
No, that's good, Neil. That's good. So in terms of people sort of not treating you differently, but talking to you in a different way, scared to say something in case they sort of say the wrong thing. Do you think that's what it was?
I don't know.
But back then,
it wasn't everyone, but there was a big part of when I came back of I just people, obviously the people would talk to me still and whatnot, but there was something just different there. I can't put my finger on it, but like with a lot of people, there was still something different there. And then also on top of that, I got treated different in like I could do it felt like I could do what I want and no one would say or do anything. And I didn't like that. I didn't like it. So then I started to well, after that Afghan tour anyway, on that tour, I I didn't notice it back then, but there was now I realized there was some changes started to happen in myself. Like I look back now thinking there was times out there where I did kind of isolate myself a little bit. I think as well while I were out there, even though I was out there doing the range stuff, I kind of felt like I got kind of pushed to the side of it. So I just felt all I was doing all day, every day was just pissing about on the quad bike
Yeah.
because I, I was like, I want to do this. I want to do, and I just felt I would just get given little scraps to do, which were like meaningless and whatnot. And it was just like, so there was that as well. And then as well, also, it was like guys were doing the, PT and stuff like that. And I weren't getting involved in that really. And I just kind of, I think that was where it was no one's fault, it's just the dynamics and how things, kind of work. But it felt like as well, I was kind of being protected a little bit. And it was just like, no, I don't want to be wrapped up in cotton wool. But even before I got out there, I had a lot of people saying, like, I don't think this is, I don't think you should go out there, and I was just like, you saying that is just going to make me want to go even more type of thing. Um, so, yeah,
I think
it was,
it's that trying to wrap an arm around you, keep you safe.
yeah,
Not trying to make it look overprotective and condescending to you as well.
yeah. But
But
I could feel it. It
yeah,
was
absolutely. Yeah.
even though it wasn't maybe not fully intentional. It may just kind of just subconsciously people are just doing it. It's um, I'm not blaming anyone
No,
whatsoever.
no.
But yeah, but unfortunately, again, because I was pushing myself a lot, and even just before we went out on that tour, when we went to Inverness and we did like the range packet, it started then as well because all they did was shove me in the armory, and I was like, I'm not. And I remember just saying to the RSM at the time, we're just like, I want to do some range stuff. So because I was just basically just hanging about on the ranges every day. I'd just go up there and just hang around with the guys. And I did because I'd done my air qual as well at that time. I would, doing a little bit of, when it was static, just doing
Yeah.
some of the range stuff. And but even then, it was like it just felt like I was just, kind of put in a corner. You
Yeah.
just, and then I was just begging the RSM, and I think he said, okay. I think I kind of twisted his arm enough, and he was like, right, okay, if you can get someone to spot you individually, I'll let you do it. And I went and seen Twinny, and he was just like, God, yeah, of course I will, man. And he was just like, of course I'll do it for you. So I went and did like Persian fire maneuver, you know. And I suppose you remember that as well when, well, I don't know, were you at that? The Inverness
No,
Spring? No. Well,
no.
anyway, the other time, you're right, he chucked me right under the bus because he got everyone on parade. And obviously, because there was a lot of sickies like playing, oh, I've got a sore finger kind of job here. And there was quite a lot. And obviously, because I'd done this, he chucked me right under the bus and he was just like, see, you know, you got Bain here just doing this and he's got bloody one leg and you can't with a bloody sore thing, And I was just like, oh, no, don't. I understand it. But he's just like, oh, come on. But
I know
yeah,
if they can't see that for themselves, fucking, they're not going to see it. Are they
yeah.
getting shouted at? So the decision to leave the army, Neil, was that one it was taken out of your hands eventually, or did you decide it was time, mate?
I know it was in my it was kind of a little bit of both. Well, it was mainly my own decision, but obviously with hindsight, I could have actually stayed on a little bit longer. But also like mentally, it was difficult as well. So obviously coming back, I came back a bit earlier because I went and seen the doctor while I was out there just because I needed some bandaging because I was like had massive breakdown and I was really sore on the stump, and I just wanted some bandaging just to help. And the doctor just obviously I didn't realize it, but obviously there was some issues there mentally which were kind of coming in involved. And he just started asking questions and he was just like, nope, you're going home. And I was like, what? I only came in here for some bandages. And he was like, no, I think I really, yes, I understand that you want to stay, and he said, but I generally, seriously, you're gonna, you best, I recommend that you go home. So just like, right, well, you listen to your doc really. So just like, right, okay, and ended up coming back a bit earlier. And then I just came back, and obviously the regiment everyone was out, so no one were really back in camp. But we were in the midst of the starting to roll down, and because we were then going to amalgamate, and I got stuck in PRI, and then I chucked myself into that. I was looking like, because well, like the PRI was in disarray. It had been for years. No one had touched it, so I then was like, okay, I didn't really want to do it, but it was something to do. And I chucked myself in. I was like staying there till like 10 o'clock at night, like proper getting everything squared away. And I had to like shift it from one place into another. And I moved everything, and I made it look all pretty and nice with nice, tartan sheeting over the area. I was just like, right, and sorted it all out. And it was like a couple of week graft. And I said like, to a major, not to say who it is, but I said like, look, we need someone else. I like needed 2IC to be and help, because I've still got Headley Court going on. And I did end up going away for a couple of weeks, and things went wrong, and I came back. A lot of stuff was missing, some expensive stuff, and then they were blaming these two guys, two Lance Jacks, and I went and spoke to them, and I knew the two Lance Jacks really well. You know them extremely well. Kind of, they've been in for years, and I had good words with them, like, you're getting blamed for this type of thing. What's going on? Just let me know, and we can work through this and sort it. And they were like, look, seriously, I have no idea. They wanted the police involved because obviously they were getting blamed, and they were like, we want the police involved if they can sort this out. Then I found out like loads of that there were other people who had access to this place, and then it just got a mess. And I remember just losing my rag with like senior people and just forefinger pointing them, like just not caring. It was just I would like mentally I was like, no, it wasn't right, and I was just like just having a go, and just standing my ground. But to be honest, the only person probably be talking logically without blaming anyone, if you know what I mean. Anyway, that got a little bit messy, but there was also like that's when I started reflecting and kind of really looking at, okay, and having a realization of what I had to rein myself back in, and had to come to the realizations that I can't be a soldier anymore. I can't do the things I want to do and go on tours and stuff like that. And as well, there was at that point I was told I'm not going to promote by someone, at that time, who was in the position to tell me. And actually, the majority of the seniors and officers were, because I was meant to get, me and John was getting promoted when we would come back from that Afghan tour where I got injured. We'd already been told we'd come off the board, and obviously with me, it all fell apart because they couldn't promote someone who was in hospital or not at work. So I got put back, and under the CO at the time, he was keen for me to he was up for, well, it was under his discretion that I could actually stay in. He was the one who was like, he advocated and said, no, he was like, no, we'll keep him on. We want to keep him. He's a good soldier. And if he wants to stay on, we'll keep him. And then obviously there was a change. And at that point, I was still promoting and everything was looking good to keep on going. And then there was a change in the CO and everything just went downhill. And he just didn't. He was like, no, even though I mean, I went back to work after a year of literally from getting injured, which was in the March. I went back to work that December.
Yeah.
And even with all that, and then wanting to keep, doing everything, it wasn't good enough for the new CEO, because he was just stringent. If you can't do this and do that, then you ain't going to promote and blah blah. So obviously, I ended up getting a bit bad blood and having negative thoughts about that, and so there was a lot of that involved. And then obviously the realization of everything happening. If I couldn't be a soldier, I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And then also with that, the amalgamation was happening and we was going back onto tanks. Because at that time as well, I was teaching folks. So I had a job if we was keeping CBRN. This is what I was saying before. If Foresight was, it would have been nice because we actually ended up getting that back and I could have carried on doing it. However, there were also the other parts too, that why I left. So we were going back on tanks, and I got told, health and safety wise, you can't do tanks, which obviously I understood it, very reasonable, and I was like, but yeah, fair enough. I'll more likely kill myself, clambering about on the tank than anywhere else. So it's like, yeah, I understand that completely. So then, yeah, it was a case of like, okay, I think I'm done, and I walked out after a big argument with someone, and we're just like, right, done. And the next day went into the med center and put in my med discharge and never went back. Well, I did go back. I was always going into work. Just obviously, as more of a civvy, I'll just go in and hang out in the squadrons, and that just sitting about in civvies, just chatting with the blokes, basically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's basically what I was doing, like day to day. We're just coming in, just mincing about, nattering with all the guys. But yeah.
So when you left, Neil, how did that sort of affect you mentally? Because obviously it's a massive change, mate. You're going for steady career, steady pay wages every month, can steady home, everything, to leaving. How did that affect you, mate?
Financially, I was actually better off leaving.
Right.
I mean, I was all right. Obviously, it's a weird thing to say, but what happened to me in kind of the world circumstances right now, it's kind of like a blessing. Weird to say, but kind of how everything's going on around the world, it's kind of a bit of a blessing in the fact that I'm actually very comfortable and secure. Obviously, back then when things were okay, I would have, I would still trade everything in to be back to how I would, but obviously right now it's kind of a bit of like, it's kind of a weird, but it's a bit lucky, in a sense. So financially, I was perfectly fine. Obviously, I got a lot of money for what happened, and it set me up where, I bought a very nice big house, all paid for, mortgage free, and had money left to do things and sort everything and be comfortable. And like my pension and everything else on top of that is more than enough every month where I don't have to work anymore. Obviously, a little bit more. I have to a little bit be a bit more tight belt with the things going on these days, but but everyone is. It's not just a. But I'm okay in that
We're all
sense.
tight.
Yeah,
We're all
God, yeah,
tight feeling off.
yeah, yeah. So that was okay. I never had to worry about that. I knew if I were leaving, I would be financially fine. Mentally wise, obviously, I had no idea of what that was going to be entail at the time. But then obviously things quickly started to spiral out of control once I left, because then obviously I've kind of lost the purpose, not really knowing what the hell I'm going to do, or I had ideas, and I but it was difficult. I thought, oh, I'll go down, and I started an honors degree in computer science and program design. Unfortunately, kind of with mentally kind of breaking down quite rapidly. I had to, after I did nearly a year and a half of it, but then it just got too much. But then also me being me, tried to do too much all at once. So I was trying to cram I don't know, it was like normally would be like a 6 year course, but like I tried to ram it into like 3 year course. So it was full on. I enjoyed it, but just mentally, it was taking a toll. Um, yeah, and it would just, I can't remember when I actually realized that it, I think it was when I turned to alcohol and I was just, yeah, it didn't last too long, thank God, because I kicked myself up the ass and was just like, I had a realization like, shit, Neil, you stop this. But I was like coming in, I was going to the pub like every night, and I was just getting absolutely shit faced, like nearly drove my Range Rover through the front of the house. It was like I missed the fucking driveway and went over my lawn. Woke up the next day, like my wife back then, well, we were ex-wife now. Um, she went to her mum, and because I was just coming in and just being sick and just going to bed, and they were just not there. And I remember coming, she buggered off, seen the Range Rover like right in my bare window, just there, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I think he was just like, shit, Neil, sort yourself out, man. And I did, and I weren't bad where I was like an alcoholic, because since it was just kind of lost control for a little while, and I quickly just snapped out of it.
It's an easy
But
fix, isn't it, having a beer?
it is.
It's
I mean,
just, I mean, my aim problem's been well documented. I don't hide away from them and that, but I went through a sort of phase where I just thought, I guess I'm going to get pissed every night.
yeah,
I mean, I've always enjoyed a beer, but it was taking the piss a bit. And
yeah.
it's the easiest thing in the world today, just to sort of mask everything, because, what it's like. You
It
start
just numbs
smiling
the
and
pain.
laughing.
It,
Nobody knows what's going on in your head unless you open up and tell them. Do you know what I mean, mate? But so the realization of that you were drinking too much. What point did you decide to get help?
oh, years after.
Was it years
Oh, there
after
was
as well,
just,
mate? Yeah.
yeah, there was so much in between of actually finally getting help. Um, a lot to do is because I'm just a stubborn bastard, and I, I don't know, like I can fix this myself. And yes, I did fix a lot of things in a way, and but obviously it took a hell of a long time. Plus, obviously, you don't fix a lot of underlying issues yourself, and
No.
there's a lot of stuff that you don't realize and things like that. I did actually seek a little bit of help, literally just before I actually finally finished, because obviously this time, where I put my medical charge, I think it was like nearly a year after where I did actually finally was out. So there was stuff in between that where I did actually go to Colchester and seen someone there, but it just made me worse, because especially at that time, no one really had any. People knew what PTSD was, but in civilians, and no one
Yeah.
realised in soldiers it's a hell of a lot more complex and a hell of a lot more different than civilian PTSD. Because like in civilian PTSD, in most circumstances, not all, obviously there's an exception to the rule, but in generalization, it's just a one-time event happens, and it's traumatic, and it affects them mentally. And when they go into therapy, a therapist can quite quickly pinpoint that and work on that. Now, with a soldier, it could be a lifetime of all sorts, from many different tours, from um, just all sorts of things just happening through. Because, well, in a military, a lot of stuff bloody happens of
Yeah.
not just on tours, but at home. Like we in like for me and you, um, talking anecdotally, we've had, especially from a young age, from like losing some prominent people in just training.
Yeah.
And even just recently, I mean, I wasn't there for that, but even just recently, what has happened, and then car accidents of people, dying, of friends dying, and just things like that all the time. Like being that shit just gets put behind, especially like for me and you, like the in air squadron early days of like two extremely prominent and good friends passing away on an exercise like that and having to just shove it away and then literally an hour later go back out onto the training area and crack on. And I mean, it's a bit, in a sense that it's training, and I suppose it trains you in then circumstances to when that happens out on tours. But yeah, it's all that shit kind of congregates. I mean, none of that. Weirdly enough, I was a weird exception. So we'll get on to that in a second because I've kind of digressed again. So yeah, I did go and seek a bit of help before I left, and then after I kind of left, the drinking and stuff started. Um, then I kind of shut myself away. I actually didn't leave the house for like a year, yeah, it was like a year or something like that. I literally didn't leave the house. Um, there was a few reasons I would like have panic attacks. It was when I was around lots of people. So if I'd go into town or a supermarket or shops, I would just be it was weird. It just feel like a bubble, like it's a sensation coming through my whole body, and my mind would just spiral out of control. Like I would like couldn't think, couldn't. It was yeah, it was kind of a weird sensation, and then before I knew it, I'd just start hyperventilating and just be like panic attacking, and it wasn't nice. There was a lot as well. So obviously, all started where I got injured in 2010. I left in 2013, and then everything started going wrong from pretty much then on. So then I'd say it was then around about, well, actually, in between that, I'll go back a little bit. After I would like locking myself away for a long, weird period of time, I actually met up with Stevie Hamer, who kind of drew me back out. I went to quite a few people have settled near Honington, so we would meet for like Christmas or Cambrai and would go for a beer and that in town. Um, so it was nice to see guys again after I've not seen them for a little while. And I seen Stevie and he asked, "Oh, what you up to?" And obviously, I'm just like, "Nothing, mate. No, just blah blah blah." Didn't go into any detail that I've been locking away or mentally. And he was like, "Fancy going fishing?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So we went fishing, and then we went fishing, and then he was like, "Oh, I tried out golf not really long ago. Do you fancy doing that?" So then that was it. Then me and Stevie went and tried golf, and I got hooked because at that point as well, it was the first time in my life where I tried rock climbing and downhill mountain biking, but it wasn't the same, and I kind of was like, "Nah, I'm not interested anymore." So for quite a long period in time, for the first time in my life, I had no sport or doing anything activity. So that was another little kind of complex thing, which I never realized for a long time until I started doing it again. Was affecting me because for all my life I've done sports, and then all of a sudden I've never done nothing. So then started doing golf, and that helped a lot. So me and Steve are every week going out playing golf, and still do to this day, where I just play golf 3 times a week. Um, and then we do our Tanky Golf Society stuff like a couple of times a year, every year. Um, so that helped, and I started to okay, right. And then I started working on myself over the years, thinking I could do it myself. And I did do in some part. I did get better. I would have big dips and that, but then I would learn from them dips and then get a little bit better. And then I think it was around 2007 where I went through a little kind of I went through a lot of deep holes in them years where I did, but twice I tried to off myself. But like the first time was a little bit of a half-assed one. I didn't quite go. I was nearly there, but I didn't fully go. The second time I was really close, where I actually got like I was gonna bloody gas myself out in the car with exhaust fumes. But and I was like there to do it, and then I was just like, no. And the things what saved me from them points were my two girls. I couldn't do it to them. It just hurt in a selfish way. I was just like, no, I want to see them grow up. I want to be there from, and I can't hurt them like that. It just sickened me to think of just leaving the girls and putting that on them, and not on a selfish way. Was just like I wanted to see them grow. I wanted to be there, and just
Fuck all selfish about that.
No, I know it's not selfish. It's just a way of just kind of explaining it in the way of a way of feeling about it. I know it's not selfish at all, but it's just like
it's what you've got there is hope, mate, for the future and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And if you're having bad moments, you think about your kids, don't you?
Yeah. So then, like them, really, really dark, and they were. Oh, I used to. Oh God, they were awful work. We're just like you just never think how the hell you're going to get out of it. But it's like if someone's going through that situation, it's just like as much as in them times, it doesn't matter what anyone else says, and they explain. I understand. It's like the people can say it will get better, but you just don't believe it. All of it, you might as well just be talking to a brick wall, because it's just like you just can't see it. It's just like impossible, but you do. And it's weird. You come out of it, but then you go in it again next time, and you're still in that thought, or you've just like this is it now. You ain't getting out of this one. You ain't getting out, but you do.
Yeah.
And obviously, after so many times, and obviously when I would get into them, I would think about my girls, and that would kind of would give me that strength and willpower to just keep fighting, as much as I just wanted to give up and were just broken and just completely had enough of the world, really just had enough. I don't know. It was just kind of, there was obviously just that little bit of spark what would just kind of just keep me grinding and just keep pushing forward. And then, yeah.
You all right, yeah?
Yeah. But
fucking strong, Neil. Strong, mate. You're telling a story here that's going to potentially save other people, mate.
It's like, right. But it's like all them experiences, and this is what some people don't actually say about it all. It's like you keep that willpower and you keep pushing through, and each time you go into that deep hole, as much you hit it, each time you keep doing it, that hole gets less and less deep. I mean, obviously, getting help before is priority, because it makes the process better. But obviously, even when you have help, you still get into these holes, but it's like having just remembering and learning from each time you go into these situations, and building back up again and getting stronger. Each time you keep doing it and doing it and doing it, you get stronger and stronger and stronger. And each time that hole gets shallower and it gets less deep, and it gets easier to climb out, to eventually where you'll reach like an equilibrium where you're numb, you kind of flatline numb. And I kind of explain that this feeling is a bit like when you go on to antidepressants. Yeah, it keeps you out the hole. It keeps you numb. Now, I hate antidepressants because all it does is just mask. It puts a band-aid on, and you don't deal with the issues, because as soon as you come off the antidepressants, you still have to go through the process of going through the ups and downs. Unless you want to live on antidepressants all your life and be numb and not dealing with the issues, then, well, if you want to do that, that's, it's your choice. But I always explain to them, like I went on antidepressants, but I was just like, I didn't go on them for long. And I was like, even through all the years, I was like, no, I ain't doing it. I need to deal with the issue. I need to deal with this. As much as it was extremely hard and painful and risky, it was just like, you need to do it. And I obviously understand, like, not a lot of people, not to blow my trumpet, but like a lot of people are strong enough to do it, because it is extremely difficult. But I always tell people you can do it, you just have to want to do it. And even in them, having that little bit of spark of something what you can grab hold of, which will keep you there and not to take your own life, is you cling on to that with everything you've got and you hold that to drag you out. But yeah, it's that points where when you get to that equilibrium of not being on antidepressants, you will sit in this horrible numb state of, but you kind of flatlining through where you're not happy, you're not sad, but then there will be a point where you kind of break that through that, and things start to look up. And it could be simple things of just like the people around you, having the help, going to help. Because especially if you're at that stage of equilibrium and you have help, oh my God, you can really flip things around because you're already, you've worked hard on all the hard part, and you're at that stage now where all you need is just kind of a little push over that line, and you'll be a hell of a lot better. You can then feel that happiness again, and things become interesting again, and you don't feel as numb. Don't get me wrong, you still go through stages of just, dips and that, but that's with everyone goes through that. You might not be depressed, or you might be an extremely happy person, in the most happy person in the world. There's points where you hit dips. Everyone goes through it. So when it's that point, but it's controlling and managing and realization of when you are in them dips of like, okay, I'm not feeling too great. It's like, okay, what can I do about that? There's many tools and things that you can do, which are, you can even go Google it if you want. And it does, all things don't work for everyone. So it's kind of finding what works for you and what doesn't work, and using these tools. And the more you use them, then they become more instinctual, and you would automatically kind of do these things without you even you're thinking about when you start to hit these dips. So it kind of keeps you in then a normal flow of how your work. I mean, I'm not going to say you'll ever be 100%. No, if you're got PTSD, you got PTSD. You'll never be 100% ever again. But you can come back to some normalization, whatever normal is, and live a happy life. And there's always going to be troubles, but you'll get there eventually. And I think so when I hit that point was for me 3 years ago. So yeah, but I'd say 2 years ago, where I kind of finally hit that normal. I feel like I can go about my normal life now and be okay, and not really have to worry about losing control, going down these dips, and knowing that just be in that horrible place ever again. It's as you can tell, it's not a quick process. It's took me literally like 10 years to just get to a decent where I can crack on now, a part of my life.
Well, Neil, I'm really glad to hear that you're in a normal place anyway, mate. And between me and you and any listeners, what the fuck is normal to us, mate? Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
the norm's not the norm for normal people, is it?
No, it's not.
But mate, it seems like a good place to finish up there. But thank you very much, Neil, for coming on and doing that, mate. That story, well, whoever listens to that, and if they're struggling, they'll understand that there is an ending. and there's always people there as well, mate. And I'm so happy that you're in a normal place now. And just remember that when you do have a dip, which no doubt we all will eventually again, I don't for a second believe that I will never dip at some point in the future.
Yeah.
It's just knowing there's always people there, mate. You know what I
One
mean?
thing I will just mention, a
Go
big
on,
help,
mate.
it big helps in things when you kind of is doing something, because there's like in a lot of that time as well, you're not interested in a lot of things because you're pretty numb and just like there. But there is some things which, like for me, it was music. So like listening to music and stuff like that used to actually really help me kind of draw me out, or even watching like a kind of a film or something which kind of drives you, gives you like kind of a, like watching Rocky or something like that, you know what I mean? It kind of gives you like, oh yeah, it's just little things like that just help. But yeah, just wanted to mention that just to.
No, that's perfect, Neil. It's like find a hobby that will keep you happy as well, isn't it, mate?
Yeah. But no, thanks for having
Again,
me on, mate. It's been great chatting to you, and I
no,
hope
mate,
people
honestly.
take a listen and take what you want, and it's different for everyone. But if someone can take any little bits and points away from that, it's great. I know I've listened to other things, and it helps.
But I find Neil after one like this, and especially with the emotion and stuff in that, mate, people will get in touch with me, and they'll
Yeah,
say, I'm struggling, you know what I mean? And
good.
that's good. You might even find people get in touch with you saying the same, mate.
Well, I remember early days before I really fully knew. I went with someone, I think you know about it, is someone who was in a troop in Afghan and that who's struggled and still struggles to this day. Me and him, I tried to talk him through a lot of stuff what I'd already kind of learned, and he was starting to go through it. But yeah, it's good that people can start to open up a little bit more and just be comfortable. Like you can talk to people. I'm pretty sure people have got people close to them and good friends like yourself. I can quite easily talk about all this now. It's um, it's a lot easier for me. But I know if someone's going through like early stages or trying to understand it themselves, it's extremely difficult. But if they should, it's surprising what help you can get these days.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And the more we talk about it, the more people listening will understand that they're not alone.
Yeah.
Neil, thank you very much, mate. That's been an absolute quality, however long it's been. I've not even checked the time, mate. But thank you very much for coming on, mate.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been great. Keep on doing what you're doing, mate. And hopefully we'll meet up for a beer very soon. We need it. I was gutted I couldn't
Definitely.
turn up to that last event. But yeah, it is what it is.
There'll be plenty more, mate.
I hope so.